Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf, which is Pesachim Pehei. We are 6 lines from the bottom of Pedal Amud Beis. It says Gemara, Itmar. We learned yesterday that according to Shitas Rebbe, the din of avoiding breaking one of the bones of the Korban Pesach is related, very closely related to the Achila aspect of it. We mentioned the Sefer HaChinuch. Eating it without breaking bones denotes dignity, respectfulness. It's derech kavod, derech malchus, derech cherus. And Rebbe holds that only something which is related to Achila, something which is ro'i la'achila, that bone cannot be broken. The bone which you may not break needs to contain some form of basar, a shear, a kezayis of basar, which is ro'i la'achila, and then you may not break that bone. Says the more Itma, we have a discussion between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon Malakish. Where is that kezayis basar going to be within that bone? Itma, Ever she'ein alav kezayis basar b'makom zeh. Suppose at the point of breakage, where you want to break the bone, there's no kezayis of basar. V'yesh alav kezayis basar makom acher. But the bone contains a kezayis basar elsewhere, not the point of breakage. Are you allowed to break it or not? Rabbi Yehuda Amar, yesh boi mishmishvira se'etzem. There's an isser of breaking because this aver, this bone has basar, which is ro'i la'achila. Although not at this point, not at the point of breakage, but elsewhere along the aver there's basar. And therefore you cannot break anywhere along that bone. Rabbi Shimon Malakish Omer, ein boi mishmishvira se'etzem. There's no isser. It's only asar if at the point of breakage there is a kezayis basar. He holds that Lefishitas Rebbe, breakage and achila are so closely related, the isser shvira only relates to the point of etzem which contains the basar. Eisvei Rabbi Yehuda Shimon Lakish. Rabbi Yehuda asked him a kash. The Brisa says, "Ve'etzem lo yisish b'rupai." Echad etzem sheyesh alav kezayis basar, whether that etzem has a kezayis of basar, ve'echad etzem she'ein alav kezayis basar, whether it does not. Either way, whether it does or doesn't, there's an isser of breakage. That's the end of the Brisa. What does the Brisa mean? My ein alav kezayis basar. Well, what do you mean it has no kezayis? Ilema the ein alav kezayis basar klal. Do you mean there's no kezayis at all? Amai yesh b'ay mishum shvir se'etzem. Why would it be asar? Antonis explains that Rabbi Yehuda and Rish Lakish both assume that this Brisa is following Shitas Rebbe, which was their opinion. They followed Rebbe's Shita that Shvira Se'etzem is related and based on the Achila potential of this Aver. So we're assuming that there certainly is a Kezayis Basar. If we take the words of the Brisa at face value, it would sound like even if there's no kezayis basar, there's an isser. How could that be? Amai yesh v'ay mishum shvira se'etzem. Elalav hochi kamer. Apparently the Brisa means as follows. Certainly there's a kezayis basar somewhere on that aver. The Brisa is simply saying, Echad etzem sheyesh alav kezayis basar b'mokim zeh. Whether the etzem had a kezayis at the point where you would like to crack it, ve'echad she'ein alav kezayis basar b'mokim zeh. Or whether it doesn't have kezayis in this very point. V'yesh alav kezayis bas makom acher, but it has a kezayis elsewhere on that aver. Either way, whether the kezayis is found at the point of breakage or not, as long as there's some kezayis on that aver, there's an isser of breakage. And this is a kasha on Rabbi Shimon Malakish, who maintains that there's only an isser if you're breaking at a point where you have a kezayis of basar. Amar lei, Rabbi Shimon Lakish responds, Lo yachi ka'amar, no. Actually, this is how you meant to learn the Brisa. Echad etzem sheyesh alav kezayis basar mibachutz. The Brisa is saying like this. Of course, the kezayis basar needs to be present at the point of shvira. What is the Brisa saying? Whether the etzem has a kezayis on the outside of the etzem, ve'echad etzem she'ein alav kezayis basar machutz, or whether it doesn't have it on the outside, v'yeshalav kazayis basar mibifnim b'makam shavir. Whether it's outside or inside, contained within the bone marrow, etc., which is roy lachila. In either case, since the kazayis is to be found at the makam shvira, you're breaking the bone with the edible portion with it. There's an isser of shvira se'etzim. Continues the Gemara, Vatanya. As we learned, indeed, in a brisa, which supports this concept, that even if the basar is to be found inside, the only way to access is it through breaking through that bone. It's still also to do so, even if your intentions are lofty. You want to arrive at that marrow, which is roy lachila, and be mekayim mitzvah chilas kachim. You still can't do that. V'atanya, as we went in the brisa, ve'etzem lo tishberu boy, you're not meant to break the etzem of the Korban Pesach. Echad etzem sheyesh b'moyach, whether we're speaking about a bone which contains marrow, and you like to break through the bone to arrive at the content, ve'echad etzem she'ein b'moyach, or whether we're speaking about a bone which doesn't have moyach, rather has some basar on the outside. You still cannot crack that bone to reach the edible portion. Umani mekayim v'achos habasar b'layla hazeh. If so, how am I going to fulfill the pasuk which says, eat? You meant to eat the basar of the Korban Pesach. If you can't arrive at the content of this, inside this bone, I'm going to be mekayim at the basar shal gabi etzem, strictly regarding basar outside. But perhaps maybe we override the issur of breakage. And you could even be mekayim the mitzvah with bas that's found inside. Umani mekayim be'etzem lo yisishber boy. And how do I apply the issur of breakage? Be'etzem she'ein b'moyach, strictly regarding a bone which doesn't have edible content. Avo be'etzem she'esh b'moyach shoyve v'oichel. But perhaps when it has moyach inside, break it through. Why? Va'al titma. Don't wonder. Why would this be mutter? The reason is because we know that an essay overrides a lois essay. Shahari Yovei essay, the essay of V'achlos habasar b'layla hazeh, will come along v'yitchel lois essay and override the lois essay. Esadech lois essay. So perhaps that's mutter. You meant to break through the bone to get to its content. Continues the brisa. Kishu eimer be'etzem lo yishberu bo Pesach sheni. But since we find that the Torah repeated the issur again by the second Pesach, Shein Talmud Loimer, there really is no reason. We don't seem to have a reason why the Torah repeated the issur again. Sharik Kfar Nemal Kechol Chukas HaPesach Yasu Oisei. The second Pesach is meant to follow, to conform to all the guidelines of the first Pesach. Why does the Torah have to repeat the issur of Shviras HaEtzem by Pesach Sheni? Apparently the Torah is stressing, emphasizing to us, Echad etzem sheyesh b'moyach, ve'echad etzem she'ein b'moyach. Whether or not that etzem has moyach inside, you may not break that bone. That's the point of repeating the issur, to highlight this aspect as well. And Tosfos points out, brings a Gemara in Zvachim, that indeed from here we learn that when it comes to kachim, we don't apply the concept of essay doiche lois essay. So getting back to the discussion between Rabbi Yechanan and Rish Lakish, they all agree that you need to have a kazayis basar on this bone in order to make an issur shvira. According to Rabbi Yechanan, anywhere, if it's found anywhere along that bone, there's an issur of breakage. According to Rish Lakish, it has to be at the makam shvira. And the Gemara went on to tell us a chiddush that even if there is edible content in an etzem, one may not break that bone to arrive at the content. We have another kasha on Rish Lakish. The Mishnah later on tells us, Eiver sheyasa miktsasa. Suppose a limb of the Korban Pesach partially was taken out of the makam achila, outside the machitza. We're going to learn later that it has to remain within the room, within the bayis. Say you have a 12-inch aver, 6 inches are outside and 6 inside. The part that left the machitza is now puzzle. Psul yaitze. How do we remove the puzzle portion without breaking that bone? How do we separate the kasha from the puzzle? The Mishnah says, Choitech at mokim shemegil etzem. He goes like this. He takes the aver, which became partially puzzle, and suppose this part here is puzzle. He goes ahead and he cuts through the flesh until he gets to the bone portion, but doesn't cut through the bone. And then he's going to slice away, peel away the kasha portion, the interior portion, the one that remained inside, slice it off the bone until he gets to a joint, and then I'll snap the joint. You're allowed to break through a joint. It's not called breaking an etzem. So we have an aver. This part left Yerushalayim, or left the house, and is puzzle. This part is still kosher. He cuts through the flesh at that point where the puzzle and kosher meet. He cuts through till he gets to the etzem, and then peels away the kosher meat off that bone, exposes the bone completely, and then cuts at the joint and extracts that bone, and he has just a bone with basa, which is puzzle, which he can now take and burn. So again, aver sheyasa miktsase, an aver which was partially taken out, choitech ad mokav shemegila etzem, he cuts through until the bone, v'koilef ad shemegila perek, and then peels away from the kasha portion until he gets to a joint, v'choitech, and cuts at the joint. Now, it's pretty clear that he cannot go ahead and cut through that bone. Vi amris aver she'ein olav kazeis bas makam zeh. Now, according to Yurish Lakish, that an aver which does not feature a kazais of basar at the makam shvira, v'yesh b'makam acher, although there's a kazais elsewhere on that etzem, but since there's no kazais at the makam shvira, ein by mishum shvira sa etzem, there's no reason not to cut through that bone. Why do we have to peel away until we get to the joint and then separate it? Niklav beipurta v'nitbre. We can propose a more simpler solution. Go ahead and peel away some of the basar at the point where you would like to cut through that bone. So you have partially puzzle, partially kosher, right? The exterior portion is puzzle, the interior portion is kosher. You'd like to separate the two parts. Go ahead and simply remove some basar at the point where you would like to break the bone. Now that bone is exposed, bereft of any basar content, and you can go and cut through it. According to Rav Shimon Lakish, there's no issur of breaking a bone which doesn't have basar at the point of breakage. So there's more to it to roots. Abaya Amar Mishum Paka. The truth is you can. Technically you can go ahead and do that. However, we're concerned that during the cutting process, the bone alongside the meat or underneath the meat will crack as well. Perhaps you won't be able to control the breaking, cracking process, and the other part of the bone near the meat, underneath the meat, will crack as well, which case is an issur. Ravina Amar Bakulis, we're speaking about a hip bone, which contains marrow, which is edible, in which case there's no way to get around the issur shvira. Even if you peel off you clean out the entire surface of the exterior surface, but there's still mayach inside. Therefore, you can't break that bone. Continues the Gemara. Tanan Hasan, we learned in the Mishnah, towards the end of the Masechta, actually. Ha-pigol v'anoyisra metamen seidayim. Chacham applied a tumah d'Rabbanan by pigol. The kohen had a machshava, I'm going to eat the basar shloi bezmanoi. That pigol is not only puzzle, it's also to do it, and it's puzzle, but it is also metame one's hands. V'anoyisra as well. A person leaves some basar over, it's metame his hands. Why? Rav Huna of Rav Chisda, they both offered a reason. Chadar mar mipnei chashdei kuhuna. One of these two, Rav Huna of Chisda, said the reason is because we're concerned about the kohanim that are suspected of doing this maliciously. They want to do the owner in. They have some sort of record with the owner that they'd like to even out, like get back at him, and they are mafagel his korban. Therefore, the Chacham applied a tumah by pickle. This way, they'll refrain from doing it. So this tam applies to pigel. V'chad amar b'pnei atzli kahuna. The other one said the reason is because of the lazy kohanim. And of course this applies to noisa. We're concerned about laziness, therefore we apply a tumah to discourage noisa from taking place. Mar masni apigel, the one that gave the svara of chashdei kahuna, that applies to pigel. Mar masni noisa, the one who supplied the reason of laziness, applies to noisa. As the Gemara explains, ma the masni apigel, the one that discussed pigel, mishum chashdei kahuna. The reason is because of the chashdei kahuna, concerned about the kehanim, who we are choshed to do it deliberately. Umad masnei noisa, the one who gave the reason for noisa, mishum asli kahuna, was on account of the laziness. Now, we know this tumah. How much? What is the shear? What is the minimum shear of either noisa or pigel to acquire this tumah? Again, we have machlokes between these two amoraim. Rav Huna and Rav Chisda. Mar masnei kazayis. One maintained that the minimum is a kazayis. Umar masnei kebetz. The other one held a kebetz. Explains the Gemara. Man the masnei kazayis. Why? Ki yisuri. Because it is in line with the sheer isur achila. A kazayis generates isur when it comes to noisa or pigel. And therefore, when the Chachamim applied their tumah, it was in line and synonymous with the shear of the isur. Uman the masnei kebetza, the one that holds that the shear is a kebetza k'tumasai, it corresponds to the general shear of tumas oichlim. We know that if food is tummy, how much is needed? How much shear oichel is needed for that oichel to have the ability to impart and transmit tumah to others? It needs to be a shear kebetza. And likewise, the Chacham applied a tumah to the noise and the pigel. It was in line with the general shear tumah, which is a kibetz. Perhaps let's take a look at Rashi inside here. So if we go back around 10-12 lines, we'll see the Rashi begins with the words metamen asayadayim. Mishnah tells us noiser and pigel is metamen yadayim. Of course, this is only midrabanan. The reason is chadam mishum chashdei kahuna shechashudin lefagel korban mishum eva. The kehanim are suspected of doing pigel on account of eva, on a masri, and therefore gozru ala pigel sheitam asayadayim. Chacham applied a tumah pigel to make it inconvenient. Kedei sheheiz et tzorach lahatvel yodav koydem sheyagib kodesh vatrichu, to create a tircha, an exertion on the kohen. He has to go be tevel his hands. It makes it difficult for him. Now, interesting. Tosfos points out that, look, this fellow doesn't hesitate to be mafagel, which is an isser, to make kachim puzzle and to go be mazik the bailam. That's not a concern. But when it comes to tumah, that's going to dissuade him. Interesting. So this brings the Gemara and Yuma actually, that the Gemara points out at a certain point in history they were more concerned about taharas kelim than shvichas damim. Impurity, that's something that you keep away from. But shvichas damim didn't even have that same severity. So likewise over here, pigel perhaps doesn't scare him as much as becoming tummy. Therefore, Chacham applied a tumah to discourage this type of behavior. The Chad Amar says Rashi Mishum Asli Kahuna, on account of the laziness, Hametz Atzlam Achilas Kachim, Gozru Tumah La Noisek Das Richay Aleim. Chacham applied a tumah to make it difficult and to dissuade them from generating noise. Mar Masni time of the day Chashdei Apigel, the one that offered the svara of the Chashudim, that applies to pigel. Or Mar Masni time of the day Atzlei Anoisar, the Atzlei applied to noise. Mar Masni bein pigel bein noiser bekazayis, because Rabban Letamu, the minimum share is a kazayis. Why? Ki surah, it corresponds to the isser. Achila kashir is achila shu kazayis, shu chayla bekazayis. The other one held it's a kabetza ketumasay kashir tumas eichum dairaisa bika betza. Okay, so we know the Rabban is a isser, this is a tumah by both these, pigel and noiser. Iboilu continues the Gemara. They ask the question: Yoitze, Gazu Rabbanan Tumah Eloi. What about Psul Yoitze? If one takes a carbon outside of its mechitza, whether outside of the Azora when it comes to Kachim Kachim, or outside Yerushalayim by Kachim Kalam, the carbon is now puzzled that the Chachamim apply a tumah here as well to discourage this type of behavior. Gazu Rabbanan Tumah Eloi. Mi Amriyan, shall we say? Perhaps there's a room to differentiate. Noisa the Gazru Tumah. By Noisa they applied a tumah. Why? The asilat sulibe, because it can come as a result of laziness. But when it comes to noisar, which is something that has to be done manually, it's not like when it comes to yoitze, which is something manual, as opposed to noisar, which is just something passive. It's left beyond the zman. Perhaps that can happen, but yoitze, which is a puki biyodayim, has to be actually taken out of Yerushalayim manually. Le'mapki le'biyodayim. That's not something that we're so concerned about. Le'gazir rabbanu tuma. Perhaps rabbanu would not apply tuma here. It wasn't needed to dissuade this type of thing. Edum or leishna. Perhaps there's no difference. Chacham perhaps had a concern there as well. Therefore, they applied a tuma by yotzei, just as neiser and pigel. Says more tashma. Let's bring a raya from the upcoming Mishnah that we just mentioned. Aver sheyasem miktsasa. You have an aver of the Korban Pesach, which was partially taken out of a mechitza, and now the exterior portion of basar is tama, is pasul. How do we get rid of it? Choytech hachemagila etzem. He cuts through until the bone. V'koylav hachemagila perek, and then slices along, peels along the bone until he gets to the joint. V'choytech, and then cuts through the joint. Says the Gemara, v'amrus gozvi rabbanu tuma. Now, what are we trying to do? Trying to separate the kasha from the pasul, the yoytze from the non-yoytze. If you maintain the chacham and apply a tuma to yoytze, v'amrus gozvi rabbanu tuma ki chatech le'may havi. What's the benefit of cutting and separating one portion from the other? Hakamathamile. The yoytze portion is in close contact. It's actually touching the non-yoytze portion of the basar and transmits tumah. Now the whole entire basar is tumah. What's the point of separating them? Tumas hastarmi. That's a hidden, concealed contact. And as Rashi brings, maga of beis hastarm is not metame. It can only transmit tumah through touching something in an exposed manner. If your hand touches a sefer, it becomes tumah. But when two things are one and the same item, and there's contact taking place inside, deep inside, that's beis hastarm. It's a concealed area, and that's not going to transmit tumah. Utuma star lamitamya. And therefore, the exterior portion of basar is yoytze, and perhaps even tameh. But the interior part remains tar. So we have no raya one way or the other. Says the Gemara, the Ravina da Amar chiburu eichel nav chiburu. Now, according to Ravina, who maintains that chiburu eichel, food contact, is not considered a real contact. For instance, especially in this case where they're slated for separation. The two parts of this basar are intended for separation. They're going to be split apart. In this case, certainly there's no connection, and the beis hastarm is not really beis hastarm. It's like two separate pieces of meat lying side by side. The maga is a proper maga. It's not a concealed maga. It's two separate pieces of meat touching each other. The point of contact is not concealed. It's as though the portions are separated from each other. So according to that shita, Michael and Meimar. What are you going to say here? If the chelik that was yoytze is going to have a tumah d'Rabbanan, when it comes into contact with the chelik that was not yoytze, they're metame each other. They're touching each other, become metame, and there's tumah being transferred from one to the other. Apparently, yoytze has no tumah. So you have a raya to our shayla. It says, well, not necessarily. Rather like this. Lemanda masni kazayis, let's make kazayis. Perhaps yoytze has tumah. But remember, there was a minimum shear. Lemanda masni kazayis, the one that maintained the minimum shear as a kazayis, was speaking to let's make kazayis. The portion that left Yerushalayim, that was yoytze, was less than a kazayis. It doesn't have the tumah. Umanda masni kebetza, the other shear that held the minimum shear as a kebetza, was speaking to let's make kebetza. So it's less than a shear. In which case, there's no tumah regardless. So perhaps, generally speaking, yoytze has tumah. The Chacham applied tumah to the suede yoytze, just as they applied tumah by pigel and by noiser. Why do we say that the portion that left Yerushalayim is not going to intamate the other portion? Because it has less than a shear, less than a kazayis, or than a kibetz. Tashma, let's bring a raya from the following brayse. Hamoisi basar Pesach michabur lechabur. If one transports basar of the korban Pesach within the same room, but from one group to the other, you're not meant to do that. The korban Pesach is meant to remain within the domain of its group. Even though he was over loisase, because he took it out of its mechitza, tahar, it still remains tahar. My love, tahar va'asr, says the Gemara. Apparently, let's assume that even though it's asr, because it was taken out of the mechitza, has a psul yaitze, we still say it's tar. My love, should we not assume tahar, it's still tar, although va'asr, the yaitze mechaber l'chabura, ki yaitze chosam chitzasa dami, umifsal. Why is it asr? Because when something is transferred from one side of the room to the other, from one chabur to the other, it is considered as though it left its domain, left its partition, its mechitza, it left its makom achila, umifsal, and the standard psul yoitze is applied. And even so, va'afilu hachi katani tar. Still, no, the Brayse says it's tar. Amalei gazra banan tuma. Apparently, the Chacham did not decree tuma by yoitze. Here we have an example of a yoitze, although not your typical yoitze, not like kachim taken out of Yerushalayim. It's another variation of yoitze. You took it out of the makom achila. It's possible, psul yoitze, and it's still tar. And says the Gemara, loy, tar umutar. It's tar, but you know why it's tar? Because it's really mutar. The yaitze mechaber l'chabura lav ki yaitze chutz l'mechitzasei dami. V'lo yifsal. Taking it from one chabur to the other is not considered as though it was taken out of its mechitza, and it's not possible. It's not yaitze, and that's why it's tar. But generally, perhaps psul yaitze would generate tumah. How can you say that? Vakatani seifa. But the Brayse continues, ha'ichlei hareza b'loisase. If one should eat this meat, which was transported from one chabura's era to the other, there's an issa of loisase. Now, which loisase? Let's go right over to Rashi. So you'll see on the right side, about one or two lines down, hareza b'loisase. Which issa, says Rashi, Keda'amar Perikol Shah, as the Gemara earlier said, we learn from there, kol shebekodesh pasal, any type of korban which is pasal, has an isser. Ba kasalitin lo yisaseh lachilase. So that's a standard fact, a standard procedure, standard halacha. Kachim which is pasal may not be eaten. That explains why over here it can't be eaten. Alma yaitze chashivle. Now, if the Brayse over here says this loisase, why? Why can't you eat this meat? Apparently, because he considers it like yaitze, and it's kachim psulim. Okay, once you've established that, why is it tar? Afilu hachi tani tar, and still the Brayse says it's tar. You can't say there's no psul yaitze. The Brayse clearly says it's issa loisase, which can only be caused by the fact that the kodesh is pasal, which psul apparently psul yaitze. So why is it tar? Oh, you have a right that yaitze doesn't have tumah. Says you want to know. Perhaps as less than a shir, as we said earlier. Bishlam lamanda amar kebeitza. This because according to that shita that requires a minimum shir of kebeitza to get tumah, this Brayse could be speaking where the basar has less than that. This because the less kebeitza, although it has a kazayis. How do you know it has a kazayis? Otherwise, there wouldn't be a loisase upon eating it. You need a kazayis to get a loisase, a shir achila. Okay, although it has a kazayis, but it doesn't have a kibbutz, and therefore it doesn't have tumah. So that will explain the Brayse. Generally, yaitze perhaps has tumah, but here we're speaking that it doesn't have a shir of kibbutz, which is the minimum requirement for tumah. But according to the other sheet, that in order to have tumah by pigel, by noisar, all these tumah, the rabbanans, you need to have just a kazayis. Michael, remember, how are you going to explain this Brayse? We're speaking about something that has a kazayis. Otherwise, it wouldn't be an isra achila. Okay, if it has a kazayis, why does the tumah the rabbanan not apply here? Apparently, Yotzei will not have a Tumah D'Rabbanan. Says the Gemara, Ella, b'Yotzei b'Pesach l'mibayla. The truth is that when it comes to Psul Yotzei by Korban Pesach, there was never a question, never any shaila. Of course, there's no Tumah. The legazu Rabbanan Tumah. Rabbanan never applied a Tumah. Why? My time. B'nei Chabura's reasoning. We're speaking about a group involved in the Korban Pesach. They're involved in the Kachim. They're knowledgeable. They're into it. They're conscientious. Umiza Zahiri Bey. They're careful. They watch each other. Rashi says there's a rabbim here. They mezarez each other, and there's no reason for us to be concerned that they will go ahead and do psul yaitze here. Therefore, we don't have to apply a tumah. So by Korban Pesach, I was never concerned. The initial shaila pertained to a yaitze by a typical carbon. The Chacham apply tumah by yaitze to discourage yaitze. What is halacha? Take and we leave it unresolved. Let's take a look at Rashi in the bottom line. Zrizin Pesach is different. Zrizin sheish rabim. We have a multitude here. Mezarz and zeh. We don't have to have additional chumras. They'll take care of each other. They won't be a psul yaitze. Now Tosfos brings a kasha because the Gemara in Eruvin says that the Bnei Chabur of the Korban Pesach aren't necessarily so careful when it comes to the isser of mavashal, of cooking. And here we say they are careful by psul yaitze. So it says they're careful with things that specifically affect the carbon itself. Halachas that pertain to the carbon, psul yaitze, etc., that they're aware of that, they'll be careful. When it comes to Issa Malach on Shabbos, which doesn't really directly affect or relate to this carbon, it's not a Korban Pesach related Isser, and therefore we don't necessarily want to assume that the Bnei Chabura will be careful with those halachas. Okay, so to conclude our Gemara, we learned that the Chacham applied a tumah to pigel on account of the Kohanim who would perhaps be tempted to go ahead and undo the carbon and do in with the Baalim, Mishum Eva, out of animosity, settle accounts with them. Therefore, we applied a tumah. Regarding Nesher as well, concerned about Atzle Kahuna, so that they be careful not to leave over basar past the expiry date. Regarding Yoitze, well, by Korban Pesach, there's no issue there. By the Karbanos, we're not sure. Continues the Gemara, Umoitzi basar Pesach. How do we even know this concept that one may not transport Korban Pesach, basar of the Pesach, from one group to the other? The Sandiloi Soitzi min abayis min abasar chutza. You're not meant to take out basar of the Korban Pesach from that bayis, which generally means a room, outside of the room. Apparently only from one house to the other. What about from one group to the other? That's an added word. To indicate even taking it out of the designated eating area, taking it out of the chabura, the kviyas of this chabura, that is also considered being moitzi, the basar of the Pesach, out of its mechitza, out of its domain. Amar Ba'ami, ha-moitzi basar Pesach mechabur l'chabura, einei chayiv, ad shianiach. He's only chayiv if he took it out of the chabura area and placed it elsewhere. He put it down in the malkim of the other chabura. He did akira, he uprooted it from the first location and deposited it in a different location. Why? Why is that necessary? Why isn't taking out enough? The pasuk uses the term haitzah leisoitzi, similar to the term by Shabbos al yetze, and just as by Shabbos, ma Shabbos ad avad akira v'hanocha, just as the melacha of haitzah by Shabbos must involve two things. It entails two components: akira and hanocha. You need to pick it up from one rishus and deposit it in the other rishus. That change of location is the essence of the melacha. Afachanami here as well by Pesach ad da'avad akira hanocha. The chiyuv is only applied if both elements were fulfilled. Akira uprooting from its former location, v'hanocha, and depositing it in the new location. Masir Rav Abba Mamamo. Is that really so that the transporting process is only completed once the item has been placed down in the new location? We have a halacha like this. This is in reference to the Purim and Esrafim, for instance, the Par and Sari of Yom Kippur, which would be transported outside Yerushalayim and then be burnt. The halacha is that the ones carrying it, their clothing would become tummy. Says the Gemara, they were carrying the carbon with poles. Now the outer ones, the ones on the far side, on the way out, had already left the Azara. And the pole, the carriers behind them, had not yet left the Azara. The first ones, the ones that already left the Azara, their clothing got tummy. But not the ones that are still inside. Says the Gemara, Yitzia, Hitzah, which is actually referenced to over there, it has to be Yoitzi, that only occurs once the item has been placed down, and in this case it hadn't happened. It was still carrying, it was up in the air. It never landed. So why they Metame Begod? If Hitzah means Akira and placement, there was no placement here. Who Moisevla, Vumafarakla? Rabbi Abba Mamam, who asked this question, he was the one who gave the answer, but Negra was speaking that they were dragging it. It wasn't being carried up in the air. It was being dragged along the floor, in which case there is an ongoing hanocha. It's on the floor. And therefore that's considered haitzah, and therefore the halacha is that the ones who already left the Azara, they were mekayim haitzah, and their b'gadim are tameh. Continues the Mishnah. Aver sheyatzim miktsasei, this was the Mishnah we mentioned earlier. Suppose you have an aver of a carbon Pesach, which was partially taken out of the mechitza, whether out of the house, the room, or the chabura, but only a portion of it. You have a 12-inch aver, and 6 inches were out, and 6 inches inside. The one that's outside, the basar on the outside, is pasal yaitzi. And I'd like to separate the two parts. He cuts at that point until he gets to the bone, doesn't cut through the bone. The perek, and then slides his knife along the bone to peel away the portion which is kosher. He gets to the perek, gets the joint, and then cuts through it, because the joint is not called an etzem, he's allowed to break through it. That's by carbon Pesach, whose bones may not be broken. But if this applied to other karbanos, which may be broken, he simply goes ahead and cuts through it, cuts through the bone using a kaifetz, a large size knife. Because over there there's no concern about breakage. Continues the Mishnah. Suppose you have a doorway. What part of that doorway is considered to be inside, for instance, by the carbon Pesach, which has to remain within the room? What about the doorway? Now, agaf, as Rashi explains, is a reference to the place in the doorway which houses the door. So the makam of the actual door is called the agaf. Mina agaf v'lifnim kilifnim. From the agaf inward is considered like inside. So for instance, if you have a room with a doorway, we assume that the first thing you encounter is the door, which is placed at that very first point of the doorway. That makam, that door makam, is called the agaf. Anything within that door, meaning the entire room, is considered inside. Mina agaf v'lachutz kilachutz. But the area within the doorway that's past the door. So you're entering the doorway. First thing you encounter is the door. Now past the door, where the door bangs and stops, past that point, you're still within the doorway. That's called mina agaf v'lachutz. It's past the agaf. What din does that have? Kalachutz. That's regarded like outside. Hachaloines. What about the windows within the chayma of Yerushalayim? The width of the windows within the window itself. Or the thickness of the surface of the wall itself on top of the wall. Kilafnim. They are treated like Yerushalayim itself, and you can eat karbanos there, etc. Let's take a look at Rashi, off to the left. This is the basar that left the machitza. The Gemara earlier explained. By Korban Pesach, must be careful not to break bones. But Mikdashim, there's no such concern. He just goes ahead and cracks through the bone, separating the yaitze from the non-yaitze. What about a doorway? Mina agaf b'lefnim kilefnim. Explains Rashi. Agaf, what is that? Kori kol hamokim hagavas adalas. The place where the door is, that's called agaf. Shu chayfif v'noikesh sham. It scrapes, it bangs there. Kish zoyger when it's closed. When you close it. The hainu misfasa pnimis shel oivia pesach ad mokim anakisha shekayin rabbits. So the mokim ha'agaf is starting from the innermost point of the doorway, where the door begins, up until where the door bangs and claps. That entire area is called the agaf. Mina agaf b'lefnim. Inside that, within the city, we're speaking about the doorway of the Chaim of Yerushalayim. So within the doorway, you can eat kachim there. Perhaps the chiddush here is even if there's some ornaments above the doorway, that's already considered within the city. That's not considered the actual doorway. But beyond the door has a din like outside. Beyond where the door bangs and stops, beyond that is called and it's considered like outside. Now, there's still one question remaining. What about the agaf itself? What halacha does that have? V'agav atzmai, meaning the actual place where the door is positioned, lo yadin hashta, we don't know at this point, whether it's regarded like inside or outside. The Gemara will expound on this. Hachaloinos. This is the door, the window shebechoymet Yerushalayim, or v'chayma begoiva, on top of the wall. You know, when you go to Yerushalayim, with my kids, we walked on top of the wall itself. There's some surface on the wall. Could you eat kachim there? That is then like Yerushalayim itself. Va'af agav, says Rashi, lo yamaron hachi hasam. Farish the Gemara. Farish time the Gemara. The Gemara will tell us that although the top surface of the wall was regarded like Yerushalayim, but that concept doesn't apply to the actual doorway, the sha'arim, the gateways of Yerushalayim, as the Gemara will give us the reason for that. That's considered like outside Yerushalayim. Continues the Gemara, Amar Rav Yehuda Marav, v'chein letfilah. The same halacha, this halacha that within the agaf is considered like inside, and beyond the agaf is like outside, applies to tefillah as well. Rashi explains, you have 9 people inside, 1 person in the next room, so if he's still within the agaf, it's considered like inside, he can staff to the minyan. If he's beyond, he's no longer connected. Upliga to Rabbi Yehuda Levi. This is in dispute of the other sheet. This individual can be standing behind a metal door. Even that cannot separate. Eidem afsekes ben Yisrael la'avim shebashamayim, doesn't create a stima, a partition, a separation with respect to Hashem. For him, everything is revealed. It's Golav Yodua, and there's no stima there. Hashem sees the entire group as one. Okay, continues the Gemara Hogufa Kasha. Let's get back to the Mishnah, which seems to be difficult. First, you say Amras mina agaf v'lefnim kilefnim. If it's within the door area, it's considered like inside. Apparently, ha'agaf atzma kilachutz, the doorway itself, the door area itself, is considered like outside. Ema Seifa. Let's proceed to the next part of the Mishnah, which seems to say just the opposite. Mina agaf v'lachutz kilachutz. If you're beyond the agaf, or beyond the door area, you're outside. Apparently, ha'agaf atzma kilefnim. The actual door area itself is regarded like inside. So which one is it? Inside or outside? Like Kasha, the answer is like this. Depends where. Kan b'shari azora. When it comes to the gateways, the doors of the azora, the agaf was considered like inside. and had a Kedushas Azara to it. Kan b'Shar Yerushalayim, as opposed to the Shar Yerushalayim, which were considered outside Yerushalayim, and were not included in the Kedusha of Yerushalayim for the following reason. The Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Yitzchak, why indeed were the Sha'ar of Yerushalayim not considered Kadosh? Because we're concerned about the welfare of the Mitzrayim. They were sent outside the Machne, outside Yerushalayim, and how they're going to protect themselves from the elements. Therefore, they allow the doorways to remain outside of the domain, outside the Kedushat Yerushalayim, and not regarded as part of the city, which would allow them safe haven. They crouch underneath the doorways. B'chama, when it's a sunny day, on account of the sun. B'gshamim, in a rainy time, on account of rain. Therefore, we understand why the agaf of the Shar Yerushalayim, the actual doorway, were not considered part of Yerushalayim, as opposed to the Azora, which was generally considered as part of the Azora, except for one. V'amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Yitzchak, mipnei ma lo nisgat shar nikna. Although generally speaking, the Shari Azora, the actual doorways, were considered as part of the Kedushas Azora, but when it came to Shar Niknar, that was the eastern entranceway to the Azora, famous Shar Niknar, who had a nace that occurred when he transported the replacement doors for the Beis Hamikdash. That Shar Niknar has special status. It was not considered Kaddish. Why? We know that a Metzora, on his 8th day, when he comes to the Beis Hamikdash to bring his karbanos, at that point he's still Mechusa Kapara. He's lacking full atonement. He can't come into the Azara. But there's a problem, because the Torah tells us that a portion of his korban, the dam, is meant to be placed on his thumbs. Now you can't take the dam outside the Azara; it becomes possible yotzei. The Metzora can't come in because he's still he's not fully tar. So what do? So halacha is that he would stand within the doorway, which was not considered the Azara. It didn't have the Kedushas Azara. So this was a special dispensation for the Shar Nikna. It wasn't included in the Kedushas Azara. This would allow the Metzora to stand there and then insert his thumb into the Azara for the dam of the Behemoth. Rashi explains that only inserting a thumb is not considered actually entering the Azara. So that explains this halacha. The reason why they weren't Makadosh Shar Nikna, to allow the Mitzoraim to stand there, Machnisim B'Nis Yadam, they would stand there and bring insert the thumbs into the Azara to accept the dam of the korban. So in summary, we learned that the Korban Pesach are meant to stay within the Makom Avchila. And regarding the doorways, we learn like this. If it's beyond the agaf, it's the place within the doorway that's beyond the door. In all cases, that's considered like outside, whether it's outside Yerushalayim, outside the bias of the Korban Pesach, that's outside the containment. When it's mina agaf vilifnim, within the door, in all cases, that's considered like inside. What about the makom of the door itself, the makom ha'agaf? It depends. When it comes to Yerushalayim, they left it out of bounds to allow the Mitzoraim to hover there on account of the elements. When it comes to other areas like the Azara, the makom agaf was considered like inside, except for one place, the Shar Niknar, which was kept out of bounds to allow the Mitzoraim to stand there during the akrava of their karbanos. Let's make a quick chazar of today's daf. We began with the halacha of shviras etzem. We're following Shitas Rebbe. It needs to be ro'i la'achila. You need to have a kazayis basar on that etzem to apply the isser of breakage. We have two shitas. Rabbi Yehuda says anywhere along that bone is okay. Rabbi Shimon Lakish says the kazayis basar has to be at the exact point of breakage in order for it to be asr. We learned that even bone that contains edible marrow cannot be broken through to arrive at that marrow, although there's a mitzvah say to have your Korban Pesach, but since the Torah repeats the Isser of breakage, it indicates to us that in all cases, you're not meant to break a bone in the Korban Pesach. We learned that Midrabanan is a Tumah, applied to Noisar, to avoid laziness, applied to Pigel, to prevent the Kohanim from harming the owner of the Korban. Regarding Psul Yaitz, we have a question. Certainly by Korban Pesach, we're not concerned, B'nei Chabura's reason. Regarding other Korbanos who left it, take. One may not transport the bus of the Korban Pesach out of the bias, and even from one Chabur to the other. Rabbi Ami tells us, the Chiv only applies when it was placed down in its new location, which is similar to Shabbos, where Hitzah requires both elements, Akira and placement in its new location. And finally, we learned about the doorways, that generally speaking, the makom of the door is considered like inside, except for the Shari Shalayim and the Shar Niknar, for their respective reasons. Be well, and much hatzlacha.